Hello everyone, this is Colin once again. I'm making this video because I was inspired by several Catholics who have left comments on my videos. Uh, and looking into what religion they are, looking at what their channels entail, it appears that some of these Catholics have it in for Islam and that they bash Islam and hate Islam, and some even claim that Islam's from the devil. Now, granted, this is just a small minority of Catholics, and I highly doubt that these Catholics here on YouTube actually represent Catholicism as a whole. And I highly doubt that they are following the teachings of the Catholic Church. I find it ironic that I have to defend Catholicism against these radical Catholics, the black sheep in the fold, if you will. Now, I'm going to be dealing with four primary sources. The first one, which will be the least one that will be delved into, the other three will be delved into in much more detail. The first one is, of course, the Holy Bible. Did Jesus preach hatred against other religions? Did he, as a role model, preach that other religions were from the devil and that his way was the only way, meaning that the other religions definitely do not preach or are a path to salvation? Now we know that Jesus said, "Do not judge, lest ye be judged." He said the greatest commandment is to love one another as I have loved you, and to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Clearly, we cannot derive from the teachings of Jesus the idea that he thought that other religions were evil. Now, granted, did he critique the social order? Was he a social commentator? Did he critique the Pharisees and the scribes? Yes, but he never attacked Judaism and never said that Judaism was satanic. Now let's look at our second primary source. It is the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Now, in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, we read in Article 841, the Church's relationship with the Muslims. The plan of salvation also includes those who acknowledge the Creator, in the first place amongst whom are the Muslims. These profess to hold the faith of Abraham, and together with us, they adore the one merciful God, mankind's judge on the last day. Continuing on, in Article 843, the Catholic Church recognizes in other religions that search among shadows and images for the God who is unknown yet near, since he gives life and breath in all things and wants all men to be saved. Thus, the Church considers all goodness and truth found in these religions as a, quote, preparation for the gospel, and given by him who enlightens all men that they may at length have life, end quote. So we have the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Now, those who are not familiar with the Catechism of the Catholic Church, the Catechism is essentially a manual that was compiled to basically tell the Catholics and to teach Catholics about their own religion and what the religion professes. And it is considered an international bestseller. And Pope John Paul, the late Pope John Paul II, said, quote, a sheer norm for teaching the faith, meaning that this catechism, this manual, if you will, is a great way to teach Catholics about, and non-Catholics, about Catholicism. Now, talking about Pope John Paul II, he wrote a book called Crossing the Threshold of Hope. And in this book, he talks about various religions. He talks about religions. And in his book, he talks about non-Christian religions and talks about how they are legitimate. He says on page 80 of his book, further along, the council remarks that the Catholic Church rejects nothing that is true and holy in these religions. The Church has a high regard for their conduct and way of life, for those precepts and doctrines which, although differing from many points from that which the Church believes and propounds, often reflect a ray of that truth which enlightens all men. So here we have the Pope quoting the Vatican II Council, which we'll get to in a second, regards to other religions, saying that they are actually rays of the same light of enlightenment. Now, on page 91, Pope John Paul II talks about, it's a whole chapter devoted to Muhammad and Islam, and he says, quote, yes, certainly it is a different case when we come to the great monotheistic religion, beginning with Islam. In the declaration, Nasra Ataiti, we read, quote, the Church also has a high regard for the Muslims, who worship one God, living as subsistent, merciful, and omnipotent, the creator of heavens and earth. As a result of their monotheism, believers in Allah are particularly close to us. He continues on page 82. He says, some of the most beautiful names in the human language are given to the God of the Quran, but he is ultimately a God outside of the world, a God who is only majesty, never Emmanuel, God with us. So he then goes on to say, Islam is not a religion of redemption. There's no room for the cross and the resurrection. Jesus is mentioned, but only as a prophet who prepares for the last prophet, Muhammad. There's also mention of Mary, his virgin mother, but the tragedy of redemption is completely absent. For this reason, not only the theology, but also the anthropology of Islam is very distant from Christianity. But then he says, nevertheless, the religiously of Muslims deserves respect. It is impossible not to admire, for example, their fidelity to prayer, the image of believers in Allah who, without caring about time or place, fall to their knees and immerse themselves in prayer, remains a model for all those who invoke the true God, in particular for those Christians who, having deserted their magnificent cathedrals, pray only a little or not at all. The Council has also called for the Church to have a dialogue with followers of the Prophet, and the Church has proceeded to do so. We read in Nostra Aetate, quote, even if over the course of centuries Christians and Muslims have had more than a few decisions and quarrels, this sacred council now urges all to forget the past and to work towards mutual understanding as well as towards the preservation and promotion of social justice, moral welfare, peace, and freedom for the benefit of all of mankind. Which leads us to, I have here the Vatican Council too. And in this book, let's look at, this is the source of all of this material about comparative religion. Chapter 56 of the Council's Declaration in relation to the Church to non-Christian religions. I'll read in Article 3. It says the Church has also a high regard for the Muslims. They worship God, who is one, living, substantial, merciful, the Almighty, the creator of the heavens and the earth, who has also spoken to men. They strive to submit themselves without reserve to the hidden decrees of God, just as Abraham submitted himself to God's plan, to whose faith Muslims eagerly link their own. Although not acknowledging him as God, they venerate Jesus as a prophet, his virgin mother they also honor, and even at times devoutly invoke further. They await the day of judgment as a reward of God following the resurrection of the dead. For this reason they highly esteem an upright life and worship God, especially by way of prayers, alms, deeds, and fasting. And then it continues on, that sounding the depths of the mystery, which is a church, this sacred council remembers the spiritual ties which link the people of the new covenant to the stock of Abraham. That was Article 4. The rest of Article 3 is what I quoted above regarding the sacred council's plea to forget the past and move together in unity. So here we have the leaders of Catholicism telling Catholics to respect Muslims. The Catechism says that Islam is the religion of Abraham, which essentially is a path to salvation. So when I see these Catholics here on YouTube and elsewhere, and they are not the majority of Catholics. In fact, my dialogue with Catholics has been very, very peaceful, loving, and not full of hatred and bigotry. But when I see some of these Catholics on YouTube who are saying that Islam's from Satan, and that Islam and Muslims are violent people, and that Islam is evil, I do not think that they are representing Catholicism as a whole. Rather, they are the radicals, they are the extremists, they are the bigots that unfortunately exist in the Catholic Church. And so I call upon these Catholics to have a more meaningful dialogue and to remember what their leaders are saying. Because the Pope, all popes, are considered the mouthpiece of God on earth, the vicar of Christ on earth. So his word is infallible. His word is essentially the word of God, orally amongst many Catholics. So I really plead with Catholics watching this video, and with Muslims as well, to follow the opinion of both religions, to come to a unity, to have a dialogue, and to have respect. Thank you everyone for watching this video. Peace be with you all.